Keestrack is presenting the H6e, a tracked mobile cone crusher with built-on 3-deck afterscreen. This machine is used in secondary or tertiary quarry applications for maximum feed size 215 mm and the maximum throughput of 415 tons per hour, depending on the setting of the machine. The material either is fed directly by the primary crusher or by an excavator to the feed hopper, and the belt feeder gives the material dosed to the cone crusher. The cone crusher can be set to different gaps, so the final product is influenced by the setting. Underneath the cone crusher, a belt conveyor transports the material to the built-on 3-deck afterscreen, where 3 final products are screened out, and the oversize of the crushed product is going back to the feed hopper and in sequence to the crusher. The hopper of the H6e has a water level volume of 8 cubic meter with optional extensions, a volume of 12 cubic meter. The side walls of the hopper have a wear lining of 6 and 8 mm made of hardness Brinell 450. The feeding width on the rear side is 4 meter. The feeding length is 3.7 meter. The feeding height on the rear side is 2.5 meter when the rear wall is open, and 3.7 meter if the rear wall is closed. The material is fed from the hopper via a belt feeder with a width of 1200 mm and a length of 5.36 mm to the cone crusher. The cone crusher on the H6e actually is a gyratory crusher. It means it has a bearing on the bottom of the shaft and a spider bearing on top of the shaft, and the movement is like this. This is very, very important because the spider bearing gives us a big support and a very long lifetime of the bearings compared to systems which only have the bearings in the bottom side and the shaft has very big forces to take up. The cone liner is available in 7 different shapes depending on the feed size, from extra coarse to extra fine. The throw of the gyratory crusher is adjustable also with 4 different bushes, and each bushing has 4 different settings. So the settings can be from 16 to 44 mm. The total shaft of the cone with the cone itself, with the mantle, is forced by a hydroset system, a hydraulic cylinder in the bottom of the shaft. So when uncrushable material goes in the crusher, the shaft has too high forces and is going down immediately, and the uncrushable part can pass. So this hydraulic hydroset is driven by an electric motor 3 kilowatt with a hydraulic pump. On top of the gyratory crusher we have a box which is capable for around 2 cubic meter to feed the material constant choke feed to the crusher. And the regulation is done by these 2 ultrasonic sensors. The ultrasonic sensors give us the level in the crusher and control the feed. The closed side setting of the crusher is adjustable from 6 mm to 44 mm also via the hydroset, which means via the hydraulic cylinder. By a lowering or lifting of the cone, we can adjust the closed side setting, and it influences the size of the final product. In cold climate condition, it is necessary to preheat the lubrication oil of the cone crusher to have less downtime and to start the operation immediately in the morning. For this preheating we have a special system. It's a heating system with separate fuel tank, and we have a timer through the control of the plant. It can be controlled, and the time can be set when the preheating of the oil should start in the morning and how long it should take. So the whole gyratory crusher is supported to the chassis by damping elements to avoid that vibrations from the crusher can go to the chassis. Also, the driving motor for the cone crusher, for the gyratory, is supported by these damping elements. For lubrication of the cone crusher and for bringing out the energy, the heat, a pressurized lubrication system is intended with a lab oil tank of 250 liter and an electric driven lab oil pump. The hydroset drive, which means the hydraulic lifting and lowering of the shaft, is driven by the hydraulic electric motor. The crusher drive itself is performed by a 220 kilowatt electric motor via V-belts directly to the cone crusher. To avoid entering of tramp iron to the cone crusher, underneath the belt feeder a metal detector is intended, and the sensitivity of the metal detector can be adjusted here in steps from 1 to 10. The whole crusher housing is under pressure. It means the cleaned air is blown in to avoid that dust can enter to the cone crusher to guarantee long lifetime of the bearings. The crushed material is discharged under the cone crusher by a belt conveyor, which has an axle distance of 12.4 meter and a width of 1200 millimeter. Along the total length we have guiding chutes to avoid spillage and to avoid falling out of rolling back material. Discharge height without after screen would be 4.8 meter and the stockpile volume would be 350 tons. In this case we have the 3-deck after screen directly built on. The top deck has a length of 5.4 meters and the middle and the bottom deck have a length of 4.5 meter. The width of the decks is 1.8 meter. So we have a screening surface on top deck of 8.5 square meters and on bottom deck and middle deck of 8.1 square meters. The drive of the main belt is performed by an electric drum motor with 11 kilowatt. The tensioning of the top deck of the screen and of the middle deck is side tensions, and the tensioning of the bottom deck is end tension. After screening, the coarse fraction is going via a conveyor with a length of 2.9 meter and a width of 650 millimeter, and an additional conveyor, the oversized return conveyor, with a length of 10 meter and a width of 650 millimeter back to the feeder. The coarse middle fraction is going out on the right side of the machine by a belt conveyor with a length of 6 meter and a width of 650 millimeter. The discharge height 3.35 millimeter. The same is on the other side, same conveyor, stockpile capacity 120 tons per hour. The fine fraction underneath the screen is discharged by a belt conveyor with a width of 1.2 meter and a length of 6.8 meter. It has a discharge height of 4.16 meter and a stockpile volume of 220 tons. All conveyors for stockpiling have an electric drum motor for drive, 4 kilowatt respectively 5.5 kilowatt. All stockpile conveyors for the final crushed products are hydraulically foldable for transport. The oversized fraction, which is coming out here, the first conveyor is also folding hydraulically, and the second conveyor, 10 meter long, 650 millimeter wide, and is transported in disassembled position but together with the machine. The drive of the whole setup is performed by the engine unit. The engine unit is a drop-off version. It means that the whole unit can be removed from the machine. The driving motor, the diesel engine, is a Volvo Penta 1355 with 404 kilowatt. The engine drives an alternator with 500 kVA. The cooling of the alternator is done by a separate air filter and a fan. Here we have the power locks to drop off the engine unit. The power locks can be released very easy. And to remove the engine unit from the H6e, we have here quick release systems. So within a very short time, the engine unit can be removed and the power can be plugged in either from the grid or from an external diesel genset if this engine unit, for example, is on service. The Volvo engine is a fixed speed engine, EU stage 3, and for EU stage 5 we have the Cummins engine L9. So for the control of the H6e, a switch cabinet is intended, and this switch cabinet is overpressured. So clean air is filtered here, and then via a fan the clean air is blown into the switch cabinet. The clean air is blown in here, gives overpressure, and no dust can enter to the cabinet. The control of the plant is done via a 12-inch screen. Also the control of the cone crusher is done directly from the screen. All switch cabinets and all hydraulic and diesel tanks are supported on rubber damping elements to avoid vibration to the electronic units. For power plug out, we have a connection here with 125 amps, which is approximately 60 kilowatt. So from here we can give power to additional screens or stockpile conveyors. For driving the machine on the tracks, we have the cable remote control, or we also have a wireless remote control unit for driving the tracks stepless, which means it is proportional. And furthermore, the gap of the cone crusher, the closed side setting gap, can be adjusted from the remote control. For safetiness, the machine is equipped with a grounding pick for grounding to the earth, and the machine is equipped with 7 emergency stop switches. Furthermore, the machine is equipped with SS platforms and ladders in a very safe way. The crawlers of the H6e have an axle distance of 4055 millimeter and a width of 500 millimeter, and driven via a planetary gear. We have 2 speeds, 1.1 and 2.2 kilometers per hour with stepless proportional drive. The frame of the machine is performed in double shell design with high tensile steel. Whole H6e is powder coated, which is the best system against corrosion and for a long life of a bright color. The drive of the tracks is performed via 2 electric motors, and each electric motor has 30 kilowatt and is driving an axial piston pump for very, very high efficiency. The drive of all other hydraulic components like folding of conveyors is done by a separate hydraulic unit with an electric motor 3 kilowatt. So during operation of the plant, the big electric motors are not running. This saves energy. For transport of the H6e, we have lugs on the machine which are certified for fixation on the semi-trailer. The transport dimensions are 20.5 meter in length, 3 meter in width and 3.65 meter in height. The transport weight with the built-on after screen is 62 tons. Without after screen it's 53 tons.